Okay, good evening. This is the Huntley Community School District 158 regular board meeting, February the 9th at 6:04. Can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Gentry?
Here.
Mr. Guerin?
Here.
Mr. Troy?
Here.
Mr. Quagliano?
Here.
Mr. Daly?
Here.
Mrs. Maiorino? Here. Mr. Craddy?
Here. All right, first item would be, I'll make a motion to go into closed session, 6:05 for the items enumerated in the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Gentry. Can we have roll call?
Mrs. Maiorino? Yes. Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mr. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Okay, we're in closed session for about the next hour.
Fast,
Okay, we are back from closed session, and we are resuming public session. It is 7:09. Can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Daly?
Here.
Mr. Gentry?
Here.
Mrs. Maiorino? Here. Mr. Garin?
Here.
Mr. Troy?
Here.
Mr. Craddy?
Here.
Mr. Quagliano?
Here. Here, 3-1 is there is no action from closed session, so we're on item 4, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. We have Heineman Middle School here, students to do the pledge. Can you bring them forward? Be shy. It's okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Alicia Parker, assistant principal at Heinemann, and with me. Oh, yep. I'll move over here.
Thank
Hi, Alicia Parker, assistant principal.
The green
at
button.
Heinemann.
The green button.
Now you're.
All
right, there we go.
Done. Alicia Parker, assistant principal at Heinemann, and with me I have Service Club, and I'm going to introduce Margie Schneider and Lisa Franklin. They're the sponsors for our Service Club, and they'll introduce the students.
So we have Nick Schneider, Evie Mason, and Alexia Kennedy.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Come on up.
Thank you guys for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, next item on the agenda is public comment. We have a couple. Again, rules of public comment are we provide for 3 minutes for the speaker to speak. At 3 minutes, if you're still speaking, I'll give you a little heads up to try and wrap it up. So if we get started, first public comment would be from Gina Gallagher.
Good evening. My name is Gina Gallagher, and I'm here tonight to talk about special education. I've learned that some Martin students will be receiving their speech therapy via teletherapy, aka Zoom. As a speech-language pathologist in a neighboring school district, I have seen firsthand how this does not work. Having students go back to teletherapy is a waste of time and money. With the resignations of several upper administrative special education administrators, I must wonder how much time was spent finding better solutions. Were retirees sought out to provide these services? Was a workload survey completed to determine if current SLPs could absorb student minutes onto their current caseloads? Were current SLPs asked to provide therapy after school for extra pay? I also wonder if the community understands the cost of teletherapy. In most cases, it is double or triple of what it costs to hire a district staff member. The next concern has to do with the LIGHT program. While there is great joy that the program will be moving back to the high school where these students belong, it is discouraging that a separate entrance and possible separate wing was discussed. Has the board considered the free appropriate public education aspect, or FAPE? FAPE states that students with disabilities must be educated with students without disabilities to the maximum extent appropriate. This is obviously not happening at the middle school. At the high school, having a separate entrance and a separate wing with no interaction with non-disabled peers is not providing FAPE. At my previous district, we had a wonderful program where our students with special needs were paired with buddies, benefiting both special education and general education students. All students have so much to learn from each other. I am certain that the board, staff, and administration would not want this opportunity to be missed. I was dismayed at the last board meeting to hear some board members discussing a possible referendum to fund a separate building for the light program. Again, this would be a violation of faith in addition to costing taxpayers unnecessary funds on top of the tax levy, which by all accounts will do nothing to raise student achievement. I can only hope the topic of a referendum doesn't come up again for discussion. Finally, with the resignations of many on the special ed admin team, might I make a request? Please seek input from the staff, parents, and community members about the type of administrators that are needed. Perhaps a forum where parents, staff, and community members could come together and report on what is working in special education and what is needed for incoming candidates to fill these many positions. As a former special ed administrator, I am happy to attend this forum and provide input. As a special educator, I know how critical special education is to our most vulnerable learners and how the whole community and to the whole learning community. Please make this important area of our district more of a priority today and in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Next would be Carrie Cross.
Hello. I just wanted to say very few brief things. Number one, the pictures without the masks are fantastic. Thank you guys for putting that back up so we can see people's faces. Those are incredible. The other thing, thank you for putting the bus where everybody can see it on Reed Road. Hopefully you guys are getting a lot of bites. Every day I drive by it, and it is wonderful to see the big sign. Maybe a couple dollars shoulder light just to shine on it at night would be a little suggestion. But I have a request to have the light decision clarified. I think a lot of people in the community, a lot of people reach out to me, just, point of contact. People were really confused about option 1, 2, 3, 4. And then when it was presented, option 1 and the new option 2 of the high school, not being like option 5. So people were saying that you guys chose option 2 in the original plan, which is not accurate. That was a different thing. So if there can just be some clarification on what that was, just so that the whole community kind of understands that. I don't know if anybody's following along, but when we did that and they showed option 1, 2, 3, 4, and then when the final thing was discussed of option 1 versus option 2, it wasn't the original option 2. So it got really confusing for the community to say, this is now new option 2, or let's say option 5. So if somebody can just kind of put something out there to clarify that so that it's from you guys and not just hearsay, so that it's more understandable, I would appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carrie. We have no additional public comment sheets here. We're on to item 6, which is revision and adoption of the agenda. Is there anything on the agenda that anybody would like changed, removed of any sort? That I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented this evening. Is there a second? Second. Second from Mr. Gentry. Roll call.
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino? Yes. Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mr. Daly?
Yes.
Okay. Item 7, superintendent update. Dr. Rowe.
All right, thank you. I just have a couple of brief things to share prior to the mid-year strategic planning report. First, in response to our first public comment, this evening, that light information, correction, the separate entrance was actually a part of a suggestion for light to have its own identity, and the entrance is not about separating from the student population. It's about providing them an entrance, because typically the students in the light program, at least when they were at the high school prior to this initial move, their bus times were slightly different than the students in the high school. They would arrive a little bit later, leave a little bit earlier, and they're in and out so frequently through their community outings. That separate entrance was valuable to their identity. And in terms of, they absolutely will be integrated to the school community, eating in the same cafeteria, and in the hallways with the 9 through 12 students. So that separation and kind of separate FAPE that's not going to occur. And then for Mrs. Cross's comment, just for that clarification, I understand what you're saying and how that confusion could have been out there. Just so for clarity, Light will be returning to the high school with a renovation at the high school. It will be funded through district funds that we will manage internally. There will be no referendum. There will be no outside building that we will be utilizing. We have begun conversations with Bold Architects. They're in the design phase. We'll be bringing together a core planning team that will consist of district administrators, the O&M department, and teachers in the Light program to navigate the needs and the adjusted needs from a standalone facility back to within a current building, which will be much less than what that original presentation had, due to the fact that a lot of the related service offices exist in the high school and are already housed there. So we're going to be making those adjustments, and throughout that process, the board will be updated on those design options so that will be very, very clear about what it will look like, what the inside of those classrooms will be. And I appreciate that. I apologize if that communication came off wonky and caused that confusion. Hearing you say that other options makes a little bit of sense as to how that can happen. It did go from 4 options to our 2 new options. I can understand that. So, there's that clarity. And the only other thing to update is actually a point of celebration that, surprisingly, 3 years later, but the McHenry County Department of Health has notified us that they would like to award Huntley 158 with a recognition award at a ceremony with Northwestern Huntley Hospital tomorrow that Ms. Lombard and I will attend for the coordination of the educator vaccine clinic that we hosted in spring of 21. So as you remember, that was a pretty big undertaking that we hosted and carried a lot of the weight for a lot of the educators in the county. So they've invited us to that ceremony tomorrow, which we will attend. So we appreciate that. We were happy to serve the community in that regard. That's all I have, unless you'd like me just to jump right into the strategic plan update. Unless there are questions?
Unless there's questions. Are there any questions regarding items Drew spoke about?
The only other thing, I'm sorry, that I would add is the CIAC committee, which is our Special Education Advisory Committee. I met with them on Tuesday night of this week, and we did talk about the transition in leadership and sought their input on the leadership qualities as the Special Education Advisory Committee would like to provide. So that collaboration is ongoing, and we had a very, very productive and positive meeting. So that feedback is valued. I apologize for interrupting. I forgot to share that.
No problem. Okay.
All right.
Strategic plan.
So as is attached in the agenda, you have our mid-year report. So as you know, the strategic plan, the annual measures are approved each year in September, and in February we typically provide this update as to our progress. So I'm not going to go through item by item, as you have a visual of the handful of things that are already completed, as well as kind of where we stand on that progress. But I do want to highlight a few of the big ticket items, just as some of the things that we're working on. As for the academics in the district, our primary focus, obviously, we've nearly completed. We have 1 school to go before we complete our tour of the district. As a cabinet, we're in our second year of doing this, where we go visit with the school improvement teams and have the principal and their teachers share with us their progress mid-year on tracking towards the achievement of their goals. It gives us an opportunity not only to celebrate their work, but also to get a little bit more intimate in terms of learning the technical adjustments that our teachers are making in the classroom in response to what our students are showing on our STAR assessment, our Ames Web assessment, some of the SEL goals. and the culture goals that they've put into place. So the great news is our student performance data in the winter STAR assessment and INSWEB are trending very, very positively. We are absolutely on track and maybe even a little ahead of where we expected to be towards our goals at the end of the year as outlined in the strategic plan. You know, there's, as we kind of expected, our students and our teachers are really rebounding strongly from the dips that the pandemic kind of afforded. So we're well on our way to achieving these goals that we've set. Very happy about that. In terms of our SEL production here, the elementary lessons that are occurring weekly, as well as the secondary and advisory in the middle schools, and the Raider Way lessons at the high school, focusing on just management of human emotion, are going well. They're continuing on. We're eager to see the progress in the next assessment window for the best data, and see as we kind of look at that through the same MTSS lens of our Tier 3, Tier 2, and general population of the 85% goal of how students are feeling in the building and that regulation. So we're eager to see how that's going to show in our next assessment window. But we've been really focusing on enhancing an area of community engagement in regard to what's happening in our buildings in terms of social emotional learning development and support of our kids. And that's an area we expect that you'll see some opportunities for parental learning opportunities in the spring through Parent University events. College and career is one of the highlighted areas. It's a new big lift for us this year, and the School Links implementation has gone off really, really smoothly. I appreciate our secondary administrator's leadership, and particularly Mr. Kennedy and what he's providing in that regard. We'll continue to emphasize and embed as much as we possibly can into School Links to make it an everyday or every week kind of a stop for our students and teachers in the middle and high school. But as a reminder, within School Links, you've got your self-assessments to what am I interested in, to narrowing down some of those post-secondary job opportunities, whether it be military to directly into the workforce, to manufacturing, 2-year school and 4-year school, and then a college search program that can help you narrow down based on what you're looking for in a university or a 2-year school and that return on investment. So it's a really, really powerful tool, and we're excited about the progression, and it continues to integrate itself into our culture. Our equity work, we continue to work through the goals that we've set forth this year. Our staff, professional learning, as well as our RAD and recognizing American diversity have been highlights that we're very proud of. And I'm personally very proud of the quality and depth of conversation that I'm hearing our staff members have just in terms of awareness occurring in the district of how they have deeper understandings of themselves as people and how they engage and interact with our students to create not only an environment that's welcoming and equitable for students, but welcoming and equitable for our staff members, as retention is a major part of our equity focus. We have much work still to do. This is not one of those things that we're ever going to achieve the finish line. It's a continual journey that we'll be on for the remainder of our careers, but very proud in the direction that we're heading. Orange Frog has been fully implemented at the staff level, and we continue to seek ways to emphasize a positive culture within our buildings. From gratitude journals in the classrooms to the little joy bomb surprises that teachers are sharing with one another to help lift spirits. As February is typically a challenging time during the school year in terms of mood. The dark days of winter are definitely upon us, although you wouldn't know today with upper 40s and rain. And then next year's focus, we're beginning to plan for that. And our next year's focus will be students and community. So there'll be quite a bit of information rolling out in the spring and summer about how that will look. And then finally is safety. A big one on safety is we've implemented our two-way text system in our buildings with Smart Social, and that's going really well. We've seen an increase in students reporting things that they see that maybe we don't see in the moment, and we're able to respond to that. And it's much appreciated. The system is definitely better. Not only the students get the response from the administrators, but which makes them feel more comfortable that their situation is being dealt with. But we're also obviously getting access to their world and a heads up on something going on that we can support and dive into that we may not have eyes on. The district has completed our bias-based bullying survey at the secondary level. Those results are being analyzed through Ms. Lombard's office with our principals, and we're beginning to work on the action plan for that improvement in the coming weeks and months. And then finally, Mr. Dean is in communication with a third-party safety audit that we strive to hold every couple of years. And that audit will occur later this spring, and then we'll have the results in our planned response that we'll deliver to you in an executive session at some point prior to the end of June. But by and large, we continue to be on track. We've completed a number of them, but we're on track with the rest, and expect that we'll come very, very close to a very high percentage of completion this year. And we're proud of the progress we've been making. But if there's any questions, I or my team will be happy to answer them.
Just maybe a little elaboration on parent university topic in terms of what's included, how it's grown, and that type of thing. Sure.
The parent university side of the house is a very wide-ranging, broad umbrella that covers a lot of things that happen at individual building levels. Some examples, back in September, our early childhood has their parent ed days. The kids aren't present every single Friday, so they have the parent opportunities to come in for parent learning events. In October, we have a new math curriculum, as you know, the elementary curriculum night, where we highlighted some of the illustrative classrooms and what math looks like in elementary. Back in November, we had the college and career readiness at all of the parent-teacher conferences, schoolings. We had a table with information on schoolings and parental logins, and connecting with them on just getting involved with that, as well as all of our students 612 went through the how-to tutorial and get logged on, and information was sent to parents with videos, and then opportunities to connect with our secondary ed office, troubleshoot that and just learn that platform. In January, we had an SEL event on Care Solis, and then elementary literacy curriculum night is in progress and planning for later in the spring. In March, we have a math curriculum online night that we're looking at, kind of navigating the changing landscape of what Carnegie has brought to the classroom. We thought, years and years ago, we hear that Common Core math is so different, my brain doesn't compute that way. And Carnegie is really about student conversation about math, and as Mr. Carnegie knows, it's a problem-solving aspect of math, and it flips the script to instead of a teacher, I teach. We do an example of the class. You do homework. It's now I give a problem. You and your classmates collaborate to try and find a solution, and there are a number of different avenues we can go. We work on it together, and then I'll provide a general lesson. So it's almost flipped it on its head. Yeah. And what that comes productive struggle. So that the purpose of those are maybe how to support a child in productive struggle when math is becoming frustrating, but this is some of the exciting growth that we're seeing. Our elementary principals especially are talking about every single one. And Mr. Altmaier asks the question, and he gets really excited every single time. It's our illustrative classrooms are making gigantic math jumps. And kids are going further than the teachers thought they would go. So next year, we fully implemented K2 and 3-5 volunteers, and then the following year, fully 3-5. So we're really, really high on the direction we're heading with math. In April, we've got some college and career readiness with some industry partners and some manufacturing opportunities planned, so parents can and their child can engage in what's around in maybe the manufacturing world and not just the four-year university. And then an open slot in May based on need as the spring progresses. So when I say we want more, parent engagement has been, especially post-pandemic, has been a tricky one. Remember the community engagement sessions last year, we saw the numbers dwindle a little bit. We're still trying to give as many opportunities for engagement, whether they be Zooms that are convenient, on-demand recorded opportunities, to the in-person sessions. I've taken a little bit of a different approach with our strategic planning community engagement sessions where they've been invitations from different groups. We have one later this month with our SEAC, Special Education Advisory Committee, like parents, our PTAs, and some of the community faith-based organizations coming together for just that general update with people that are volunteers and community leaders to come together. We had one with industry partners earlier in the
Right,
year.
right.
So we're just trying to find ways that everyone can engage with the learning that their children and is going on in the community in a way that makes sense with them and their
Right.
schedule. So, that's an example.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and that, just further that, I mean, that was gonna be one of the questions, parent-teacher conferences, participation. What was that like? I mean, is it still lagging from where we were, say, 5 years ago, or is it picked up
I
quite
don't
a
know
bit?
that I would say it was lagging. We didn't keep a tally this year. We conducted, years ago, we used to gauge that physical, who walked in the door, because we had the survey that they took present. But we're sending that survey out to try and get a wider swath of response rates. Our schools felt very full during the process. I don't have numbers to share, but they felt full. Every building that I walked in, there was parents in line for the schooling to be able to learn about it. I think engagement was good at that time. And engagement individually with parents has always been very good. I think it's just come to an event and learn more. Everyone's very, very busy. And since the pandemic, we still see, I guess, when they're stretched even more thin.
Yeah.
Just getting them to come to things is, I think we have to
I understand
alter our
everybody's
approach.
busy, there's probably nothing more important than their children's education. In the world of priorities, you'd think that would be tops.
Well, I don't know that I take it as not being a priority. I think that when you get the information via email and you have access to it via video, it maybe people that physically walk in the room,
They're taking it in.
and like these meetings. I mean, we still have a handful of people that are attending, and if you look online, there's a handful of people that watch. But then, if you look at the views in the next couple of days, people are still watching the board meetings on demand when it makes sense for their schedule.
Yeah. Understood. Anybody have?
Yeah, I just had a quick question, on this particular topic with Parent University. I know you talk about our Parent Ed Days at ECC. Could we maybe look at, a Parent Education Day at school-wide program for those parents? These children start out so young, and parents, and young parents, new parents, a new growing opportunity and time in their lives, but those last 4 years, the students are with us. If parents need guidance and help also. Is this kind of a suggestion? Is it something that we could incorporate as they transition to, guardianship and just all sorts of things that go along with, that path to independence? Can we maybe look at something for?
Well, that's an interesting point, and I think it feeds right into exactly why we changed it from a coordinator to a principal on the LIFE program. That all can live with my program of 57 students and 5 or 6 certified teachers, but about 20 adults that support that. It's a very tight-knit group. And a principal and their capacity for not only being a 12-month employee, but it goes beyond IEP compliance and ensuring what a coordinator does, ensuring that their IEP goals are being followed. We're talking program development, curricular development, deep parent engagement. I think that's the perfect avenue as that begins in the fall for that principal to form deep relationships with those families and bring them in to talk about that 4-year track.
Because
I think that's perfect.
with parents as well, they're sharing ideas and, hey, this doctor's great with continuing, their medical care, and they just share resources, and it's a really, good opportunity to just maybe, they started at ECC, with their parent groups, and then as they're exiting the district, maybe.
Yeah, I think like any of our buildings, that parent engagement is going to be really important, and with a small tight-knit group like the Light families are, I think that'll naturally develop. But it's a good idea.
Your question, because I want to move on to one other thing. Okay, so I want to wrap back around to our bullying plan, and it's marked, we've got it completed. So what
what aspect of it is complete? You said
No,
the
students
survey?
completed, the survey was completed.
Okay.
Meaning that was given, prior to, parent-teacher conferences and spring break. So, that came back, those results of, one as middle school, years, and then just got desegregated for each of those two buildings. So principals are, taking a look at that. We're looking for those themes and trends. The next piece of that will be suggestions and recommendations from them, me helping facilitate that, and getting that out to students, staff, and the communities in theirs. And then they will be doing, they're working through what they would like to put together as a committee. I'll help guide some of those thoughts and whatnot for their second phase of that, which will happen here in the spring, and that's the action planning based on the data that we learned from that. So it should say ongoing.
So it's completed ongoing.
Completed.
Survey completed ongoing.
Survey, okay, so that's what I needed clarification on.
Yep.
Now, in the spring is then when parents will start coming in as part of that collaboration process?
Yeah, so I don't want to speak for the two schools on how they will bring them in, if they'll, just ask for all of those volunteers or whatnot, because can't have everybody in the room, right? So, they'll be probably getting that information out in a variety of different ways, but parents will be involved in that. When you think about all of our other committees that we do, we would try to get a very representative group, to be able to do. So students, staff, and parents will be involved in that.
And this is going to be done then by the schools instead of as a community, like just to have that consistency throughout?
So the two different schools, maybe, so this was a bias-based survey, and so there's going to be different things that maybe came out in one building over the other about the type of bullying. Maybe it was about gender, maybe it was, something else. And so they will want to have very targeted action steps to address what they're seeing in their school based on the feedback that they got from students and staff. And then there will be some that will be universal to the district. So some of that will be, it could be advisory type programs.
So as an
Yeah.
example of if there's a particular trend at one of the middle schools, a school-wide assembly or targeted lessons based on that feedback could be in the response plan that it may be more pertinent in one middle school versus the other. Could be good for all.
Yes.
But if it's addressing a specific concern that came out through the survey, we want to address that concern head on.
And we only surveyed the middle schools?
Oh, 612.
No,
I just use that as an example.
This was, remember, for this year, it was only the two middle schools, for that, because of the work with that. We want to take this and then be able to roll that out to the other levels in the future. Doesn't mean we won't be getting feedback. As you know, every year in the spring, all the buildings do need to get feedback on discipline, bullying, and all of that to make recommendations and changes. So that'll still be going on. The students just didn't partake in that survey.
Okay, all right. Thank you for clarifying that, because I was like,
Yeah, that work still will continue to happen.
why are we being, then all of a sudden, my blood pressure kind of went.
Nope, I'm good. All right, okay, good.
All right, thank you for clarifying.
And just to refresh or establish my understanding of the term bias-based survey.
So we partnered with Prevent School Violence Illinois, and to be able to find those themes about how students either are experiencing bullying, witnessing bullying, we really wanted to get to what is that exact type. And so it could be the bias-based bullying, because it looks at, is it based on gender? Is it based on sexual orientation? Is it based on race? What are we seeing there of those trends? And so then we can really tackle if we're seeing a certain area that needs
Now I'm viewing the term in a different way.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
Thank you.
perfect.
Is there anything further? I'm going to ask you a generic, very generic question. Out of all these goals that we're trying to address, which do you think we're most on track on, and which do you think we're least on track on?
Well, I was really encouraged by our mid-year academic progress. I can't say, some of them were we're already at that 84% that we're targeting at the end of the year. Whether they'll replicate that on the IAR is hard to say, but I think I was most excited about that part. You know, honestly, if you look at our equity and action plan and just the sheer number of things that we said we were going to tackle, some of them are deep systemic things like how we are identifying students from underrepresented groups to make sure they are pushing on into AP, and so and with that may sound easy enough, but it's actually like 17 steps or so to do that. So because of the volume of that one, you know, that I stay awake a little bit worrying about that one just because of the volume. But we still have a lot of time. Our intention is still to meet, but there's a lot to do still on that list. So I would say that one, and I'm really excited about the academic growth. I think you will be very pleased with, assuming we hit our, you know, the performance.
Right, but where it is
there on the one day to take the state assessment.
Yeah, where it is most recently.
We're in a really good place.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything they'd like to ask Dr. Lynn? No. Do you have anything further?
Nope, nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you for that update. Okay. We're on item 8. Dr. Zemsky, I'm sorry. What happened to my throat? But what do you have for us?
Just two things, and quite frankly, they're both thank yous, and just to highlight good work going on. Many families engaged in the 8th and 9th grade transition over the last couple of weeks. We are going to be walking in 684 students out of Heinemann and Marlowe to the high school. And I thought Dr. Beelan and his team did an excellent job in terms of communication. They had middle school night for families January 26th. They all got to visit to the middle school January 20th. There was a Vanguard parent night. School counselors were at the middle school this week, and that's plugged to the school counselors, National Counselors Week. They're doing good work as well too. It was just great to see. You know, they were able to get into the field house and learn about clubs and activities. They had an opportunity to learn about the different pathways between traditional blended online and Vanguard. They learned a lot about academies. Just a great deal level of excitement, and that's great to see. Packed house, 2 sessions, really good. The other thing I wanted to share, just as Heinemann Middle School continues to grow and work in their path addressing the designation, they've been engaged in some really good training through the Illinois Resource Center, building a foundational knowledge, really led by Ms. Poncio Jordan and Dr. Bagby and others. Stephanie Mitchell's done a great job with leading her team as well too, and a great trajectory moving forward to support multilingual students. So just 2 thank yous regarding the transition and the work at Heinemann for 6-12 tonight.
Very good. Questions? No? Thank you. Item 9 is Dr. McCrindle.
I just wanted to give an update on some of the work that we are doing with teams of teachers on the elementary report card. About 5 years, we began a standards-based grading approach K-5. We had been a standards-based approach K-2 and kind of grew it up about 5 years ago. So Mrs. Moan, our director of curriculum for elementary, and Ms. Busby, she is our elementary district instructional coach, have been working with teams of teachers from each school, different grade levels. They serve as teacher leaders on different teams, from our math gurus, our literacy gurus, all different parts. And so they're working on how we can revamp our report card to make it more parent and student friendly. We've gotten feedback. Some of the teachers on that team are actually parents in our district as well. So they've seen the feedback from being a parent receiving a report card and then filling it in. And one of the first questions Ms. Moan asked them was, if you could sum up our report card currently in 1 word, what would you say? And some of the answers included it's overwhelming at times to get all that information about your child, and sometimes it's not clear to a parent's perspective on what we're actually trying to show what a child can do. So we have been implementing our interdisciplinary units, this is year 2 of those, as well as implementing some of our phonics resources, which support our science of reading and core professional learning that we've done with our teachers, as well as the shift in our math materials. And so it's time to take a look at that. And so what the teachers are starting to do is meeting as grade level teams and narrowing down our standards into competency statements, overarching guiding statements that will tell you what a child should do at the end of kindergarten. So, for example, we want them to name all of the letters and be able to write their letters. That's just one example, and just saying it very clearly. And narrowing that down from maybe right now there could be up to 14 items listed to maybe getting 6 or 7 that we really want to show and highlight the students' growth throughout the year. And so this is a very tedious process. The teachers have done an amazing job along with Ms. Moan and Ms. Busky in having these conversations, and they just completed step 1. The next step, once we kind of narrow those down, they're going out to get feedback from the rest of the teachers in the buildings on their teams. We're going to work with dual language and make sure that we're able to have that consistently, and as well with our special services department for all of the report cards for our different programs. But they're going to build out rubrics and parent guides that we could then send home with our report cards. So when a parent receives what a student can do, then they can we can say that this is what this means in parent-friendly terms. So I think sometimes we're the kings and queens of being able to use some educational jargon, and we need to really make it very clear. And so I'm very excited about this work, and just a huge shout out to the teams of teachers working on this, as well as Ms. Moan and Ms. Busky for their leadership. Any questions?
Questions? Okay. Item 10, Dr. Castillo.
Good evening. So 6 years ago, we presented our plan to begin the dual language program. It's hard to believe that this evening is time to talk about the next step, as our first cohort will begin middle school next year. It has been an honor to lead alongside amazing dual language teachers, staff, building leaders, the curriculum department, and families who continuously advocate for our children to be bilingual, biliterate, and multicultural. Our team will also like to thank the board and Dr. Rowe for your bravery and support in allowing opportunities for our students to thrive in a welcoming and inclusive environment. Mrs. Poncio Jordan has tirelessly worked in improving and elevating our program alongside our principal. I will be presenting tonight the future of our program.
I'm just going to go ahead and get ready to share my screen. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present on our dual language program. We're going to be providing some updates and also our next steps. So the presentation this evening has 3 objectives. So first, I'm going to review our current dual language program at the elementary level. And then I'll provide an overview of the plan to extend dual language into the middle school. And then finally, I'm going to give you guys a plan of what it's going to look like as we transition to a dual language academy. So first, we're going to start by just doing a review of dual language at the elementary level. And we're really going to start about why, and talking about why we even have dual language. So Illinois state law requires that once an attendance center has at least 20 students of a specific language, we do have to provide some sort of bilingual education. So there's 3 different types of programming that we can choose. So we can choose transitional bilingual education, dual language one way is another model, and then the third model that we can choose is the two-way dual language immersion model. So you'll see here that really the difference between all of this model are the participants and then also the outcomes. So looking at the transitional bilingual education model, when we look at these spaces, the colors here for the green spaces are going to represent our Spanish speakers. The blue is going to represent the English. So with a transitional bilingual model, really you're taking those Spanish speakers that qualify for that bilingual Spanish program, and you're going to give them some sort of Spanish instruction for the program. But the ultimate outcome is that they're going to transition to all English. So once the students have reached that English proficiency level, then they're exited out of the program. Another model is a dual language one-way model. So taking those same students who qualify for that program, teaching them in Spanish, but then the goal is, it's a longer goal, in making them bilingual, bicultural, and multicultural. And you'll see that the end result then for those students who enter the program is to become bilingual and biliterate. Now, the dual language two-way immersion model, however, you'll see that the biggest difference here are the students who participate. So you will see all the different faces here. So not only are we taking those students who qualify for bilingual Spanish education, we're also able to offer the program to English speakers or those who are coming from just an English-speaking household. The blue-green face here is also kind of unique because we're also able to offer the program for possibly like second-generation students. So those students who have Spanish, but they probably have English, enough English that they don't qualify for any technical bilingual services. But really it's maintenance for them. They want to maintain that Spanish, they want to maintain that culture. And then for us, what's really unique here in Huntley is that teal student. So those teal students is another pair of students that we can actually service within the program model. And those are students who actually have another language at home. So those students, when they're in the dual language immersion model, they could be learning Spanish as actually a third language. So you'll see here the outcome for this two-way immersion model is bilingualism and biliteracy. So we'll see that the students stay in the program for a longer time to really achieve that ultimate goal. And what I highlighted here is that the two-way dual language immersion model is really the ultimate goal when providing any bilingual services to students. So when we're looking at our dual language program goals, our dual language program goals here in Huntley are really based off of the 3 pillars of dual language. So that includes bilingualism, biliteracy, so being able to speak and speak and listen and understand another language. The second goal is that high academic achievement in 2 languages, and then the third goal is that sociocultural competence. So when we look here at the dual language program goals, we'll see that all of those goals align directly to those 3 pillars. So the first one, of course, is that closing that opportunity gap for those English language learners. So those are those students who are actually qualifying for those services. The next, becoming bilingual, biliterate, and multicultural. Developing high academic performance in Spanish and English. Using the 2 languages comfortably and effectively in social and academic settings appropriate to their age level. Demonstrate an appreciation of cultural diversity and cross-cultural competency across a variety of social situations. And of course, we're going to provide the opportunity for students whose first language is not Spanish to actually acquire that other language. So what is our current structure right now at the elementary level? So we are a 50-50 two-way immersion. We are two-way immersion, which basically means we are taking those students who have some sort of Spanish at home. So half of our every single class is made up of students who have Spanish. The other half of the classroom then is made up of those students who have just English, or they could have another language at home. The next piece to kind of pay attention to is that we're a 50-50 language allocation model. So that just basically means half of our instructional day, 50% of the instructional day is delivered in Spanish. The other 50% of the day is delivered in English. And then our students in dual language attend specials or their electives just like their peers. This is just a quick glimpse of what does it actually look like when I say it's a 50-50 model. So we allocate certain subject areas to be taught in a specific language. For kindergarten through 2nd grade, it's very similar. For kindergarten through 2nd, it's exactly the same. So we teach Spanish literacy, we teach science in Spanish, and we teach social studies in Spanish. For the English part, we teach English literacy and math. In grades 3 through 5 then, the subject areas that we teach in the language allocation is very similar. The only difference that we're going to see here is that social studies now is going to be taught in English. We're going to continue teaching English language arts, and we're going to teach math in English. The content areas that stay the same in Spanish for 3rd grade are science and Spanish literacy. So how does the enrollment happen for dual language at the elementary level? Well, we talked about that initial enrollment, right? So the time that the students enroll into dual language is always at the start of kindergarten. So we screen students, and those students who are coming from bilingual Spanish-speaking households are automatically enrolled in the program. Then there are students who, when they go to register for kindergarten, they can indicate that they are interested in enrolling in dual language, and then those students are entered through a lottery system. There are other ways that other students then, after the initiation of kindergarten, that they can enroll into the program, and these are just a couple of other ways that other students can also enroll. So it's anytime we have any Spanish-speaking student enter our district. If they qualify for bilingual services, since that's what the program is for, those students are automatically enrolled into dual language. Any dual language student that's coming from another district. So this could be an English-speaking student that's already enrolled in another district, since a lot of districts are now offering two-way dual language immersion. Those students can also enter possibly in 2nd grade, 3rd grade, or 4th grade. Those students can already be enrolled. And then newcomers, we might be having newcomers in 4th grade or 5th grade. If they're coming from a Spanish-speaking country, they can then be enrolled into the dual language program. Now, the number of classrooms that we're able to offer does depend on the number of Spanish-speaking students that qualify. And you'll see that later based off of some of our sections. So this is just a glimpse of where we are currently rolled out for dual language. So you can see here in the 22-23, this is our first year rolling up 5th grade, like Dr. Del Castillo just mentioned. This is our first cohort rolling up into 5th grade at Martin. At McGee, we are rolled up to 4th grade dual language, and at Conley, we're currently rolled up to 4th grade. Now, the one thing I will point out is that at Cheswick and Martin, those are the two schools that have 2 sections per grade level for dual language. At McCabe, at McGee, and at Conley, we have 1 section for dual language for each of those grade levels. All right, so that was just a quick overview of currently where we're rolled out and some of the components that are essential for us at the elementary level for dual language. And now I'm going to talk to you guys about our plan into moving now the future of dual language and into middle school. So in 21-22, the school year, we went ahead and launched a dual language steering committee. So we gathered a team of representatives from various stakeholders. So that included district office administrators, that included building administrators, that included parents from the dual language program, and district and dual language staff as well. So really the whole purpose of this dual language steering committee is just to kind of learn really about the dual language program, because of course 21-22 was COVID. So there was a lot of like what's happening, what does the program look like? So we partnered with a biliteracy consultant, and really we used the guiding principles of dual language, which is the guiding principle for all programs that go with dual language, to really learn more about the different aspects and where we were at as a district and how we were developing. With that also came the question from our families, is like, what's going to be the future, right? So at that time, the dual language students, it was 3rd grade that they were enrolled in. So really taking a look at 5th grade is coming, what are we going to do with our students after 5th grade? So we were able to engage in those conversations. So one of the recommendations of the Dual Language Steering Committee was to actually survey our families. Survey our families and get a gauge on, well, what do we want for middle school? If we were to look at the components of dual language middle school, and if it were to be something that were offered, is this something that they would be interested in? So we did survey all of our families, and 70% of the families responded. We surveyed the families who were enrolled at the time. We received 112 responses. 104 of those said yes, they would absolutely enroll in dual language. 8 of those said it would be a possibility, but mostly because they just wanted more information on what the program would look like. So we did ask several questions on the survey as well. One of the questions that we did ask, just to get a better gauge and more feedback on from the families, is if the dual language program were to go through the middle school, what are the academic or language goals that you would like your child to accomplish? So overall, we received a lot of great feedback, a lot of things that they wanted to see for the future. And I will tell you, like 100%, all of the feedback was, yes, we want to move forward with dual language, and we just want to see what the next steps could be. I just pulled a couple of these feedback, a couple of the comments to share with you today. So having the conversation skills for a lifetime, being able to use the dual language skill set in a career or professional setting, being comfortable enough to use Spanish when traveling outside of the U.S., to continue their acquisition of Spanish language by continuing to use it at school. If they do not continue it in middle school, a lot of the language would be forgotten. Dual language brings attention to diversity and pride of Spanish-speaking cultures that exist within the school, whether they are in dual language or not. And then the final one that I wanted to share is in Spanish, seguir manteniendo y mejorando sus habilidades de lenguaje en español, al igual que en inglés, de tal forma que logre fluidez en los dos idiomas. So essentially that's saying just make sure that they're maintaining and bettering their abilities in both English and Spanish so that they can become fluent in both. So based off of this feedback, we are recommending the expansion of dual language for students into middle school. So what would that look like then? Here I have a sample schedule of what we are anticipating the dual language programming looking like at the middle school. So we're starting with really the basic or the foundationals of just like what we did for elementary. What do we need to be dual language at the middle school? So in order to be considered dual language at the middle school, we must offer Spanish language arts. That's one component. The other component is just offering at least one more class that's taught in Spanish. So you'll see that here reflected in the schedule. So we have a Spanish language arts class that's going to be offered, and then the other class that's going to be offered in Spanish is Project Lead the Way, a STEM or exploratory class. We have here highlighted in yellow as a flexible model, and this is a flexible based on the need of the students. So it could be an area where we're providing additional possible language arts in English, possible language arts in Spanish, depending on what they would need. It could be a time for intervention. So we left that as a flexible for the students. Now, all the other parts that you see in blue here are the parts that the students would be receiving in English. And I think the part to kind of point out here, I know one of the concerns for the parents is they wanted to make sure that the students had opportunities to have classes with other students. Currently, right now, some of the, because they are in a cohort, they may not get out and have that experience with other students. But here in the schedule, you can see that it's reflected that they will have that opportunity to go out and have the experiences with other students while also maintaining and having a the Spanish exposure and the Spanish development that is needed. So here, I'm just going to highlight a couple of the benefits of the schedule. So like I had already mentioned, so the dual language students will have the opportunity to practice in other core classes along their middle school peers. That's essential. The model will continue to support the students in earning the State Seal of Biliteracy, which is a designation that they can receive at the end of high school, just showing that they really, truly are bilingual and biliterate. We know that the teachers that we will hire for this will possess an endorsement in the content area, as well as have a bilingual teaching certificate. In the Spanish classes currently that we have chosen, so for Spanish language arts, Common Lit, and then also the Project Lead the Way, those courses are already offered in Spanish. So it's not anything additional that we have to purchase. It's already part of our current curriculum. We know that too, by offering that flex model or that yellow piece in their schedule, that we will be able to actually meet the students' academic needs where needed. So another piece we want to look at, just like what we did at the elementary, is how are the students going to enroll into the dual language once it's offered at the middle school? Here, it would be automatic placement for the students. So they would have to have had a dual language at the elementary, and then they would have to automatic enrollment at the middle school. And it's going to be the same for students that are transferring in and have Spanish speaking abilities and or qualify for bilingual services. Some of those students could also qualify for some of these dual language classes. The dual language students, of course, that would be transferring from other districts, that could be an automatic placement for them as well. Newcomers, so newcomers coming from Spanish-speaking countries could also enroll into the dual language program and also participate in those Spanish classes. And just like the elementary, the cohort is going to be dependent on the number that's moving up into the middle school for that cohort or for that year. Right. So that is a plan of transitioning then from the elementary and what we're proposing then for the middle school. And now finally, I'm going to just walk through the plan of what we're anticipating as a transition to a dual language academy. So as with all areas of education, as part of a continuous improvement, we're constantly evaluating on other ways that we can be responsive to the needs of our students and our families. So this past year, we took on programmatic reviews of different areas to see how we can best support our programming. So the programmatic reviews included staffing, instruction, professional development and support, materials and resources, and then we also included just additional factors as well. So in conclusion, what we came to the conclusion of was that in order to best support all of these different areas under review, that we are recommending the development of a dual language academy that's going to be housed at Reed Road campus. So grades K through 2 for dual language would be at Cheswick, grades 3 through 5 would be at Martin, and then the middle school would then be housed at Marlowe. This multi-year transition would begin the 23-24 school year. So here we'll look at the benefits and why we want to transition to a centralized campus. So staffing. So when we're looking at staffing, there's more flexibility if we have all of our dual language staff on campus. One of the areas that we can move to is a two-teacher model, which is currently what we're utilizing at Cheswick and at Martin, meaning that we can have a specialized teacher that's just specifically allocated for just maybe the Spanish language arts, whereas we can have an English teacher who is then specifically designated to teach the math and English or the English language arts. Instruction. This is going to allow increased dual teacher collaboration. Dual language is a very specialized field in which you have to have all of the resources and really the knowledge of how to best teach. So being able to collaborate with your peers would help increase the instruction, and even having those dual language PLCs is also going to help increase our student achievement. When we're looking at professional development and support, this is very important. This is going to allow increased opportunities for collaboration and support among the staff at one campus. It's also going to increase our ability to grow our capacity. So currently, right now, we do have a multilingual MTSS facilitator who helps support our dual language program, and we also have a multilingual instructional coach who helps support our program. So instead of having to be spread out between all the different buildings, these specialized staff then could just consistently support at these specific locations. And then more importantly, we would have more consistency in the implementation and also the program fidelity. When we're looking at materials and resources, we're able to not only maximize our multilingual personnel, but we would also have the ability to possibly, if needed, consolidate some classes so that we're not having many classes with maybe smaller numbers. And then the consolidation of students and staff to one campus would also lead to just having a cost savings, because we don't have to buy materials for all of these different buildings. We would just have to buy materials, both digital and any hardcover resources that we would need just for one location. Now, here are additional benefits that we see to transitioning to a dual language academy. More importantly, students have a larger community of dual language peers at every grade level. As you saw before, currently right now at some of our schools, there's only one cohort at each grade level. With having more cohorts at every grade level, we do have the ability to mix students throughout every grade rather than staying with just one group. Dual families would also have the ability to connect with other dual language families that's outside of their cohort, not only at their grade level, but also across multi-grades. Whole activities could be differentiated to help support the bilingual biliteracy and multiculturalism. For instance, curriculum night can be more catered to bilingualism, biliteracy, literacy night, parent universities, and many other opportunities. And of course, with an increased strengthened program, we would have an increase in retention of families throughout the K through 5 experience, and then transitioning then into the 6 through 8 dual language program. So when looking at the Dual Language Academy timeline, this is kind of a snapshot of what it would look like over the next 5 to 6 years. So you're going to see here in kindergarten then, all future dual language kindergarten students starting at the beginning of next year would start at Chesapeake. So that's why it's highlighted here in yellow. And then the following year then, these students are going to transition up into first grade. So with all of these students, with every cohort that's transitioning up every grade level, by the year 2028, 2029, all kinder through 5th grade, and then grades 6th through 8th grade would be fully transitioned onto the Reed Road campus. And then here we can see LeGee, McCaven, and Conley, they slowly will be transitioning out as those current cohorts finish off at their home building. The second point that I have highlighted here is that the students that are currently enrolled in the dual language program at their home schools would finish off at their home schools. And then the other piece, as we are starting to expand our program into the middle school, the grades 6 through 8 would then, for the dual language program, would only be offered at Marlowe. So we are very excited to be able to offer these new opportunities to our families, not only extending out into the middle school, but also now the opportunities that come with transitioning to a dual language academy. So with that, we understand that there will be several questions, especially as our 5th grade families get ready to transition and opt into a new model at the middle school. So we will be having an informational meeting on Monday, February 13th at 5 p.m. It's going to be a Q&A with both myself, Mr. Johnson, and also our director for secondary. We're going to meet with the families to help answer any questions that they may have about schedules or just the program in general. We are sending a Google form as well, so for whatever reason they're not able to attend via Zoom, we can always reach out to them with any questions that they may still have. Every year we do hold incoming kindergarten informational meetings for those parents or families that are interested in dual language. So we'll continue to hold those this year and ensuring that the information gets out, that parents understand that if they are interested in enrolling in dual language in kindergarten, that program is now just going to be housed at Chesapeake, so they are aware of that change and that that's going to be a continuous model as we move forward. So here are the dates for the incoming kindergarten informational meetings. We have one for Monday, February 27th via Zoom. Wednesday, March 15th, it's going to take place at Chesapeake at 5. Wednesday, April 5th, another parent informational meeting via Zoom as well at 9 a.m. So with that, I know it's a lot of updates, and we're really excited about all of these different changes and the new things that we're able to offer to our families. I am available for some questions. I know there are some questions.
We have a question, but go ahead, somebody else. My question was going to be on the transportation side of it. What happens when you go push everything to the one campus? How do we accommodate that transportation-wise? I don't know, because it's a little further off. We haven't completely thought about it.
Yeah, so similar to students that may be in other specialized programs, we would do cross-boundary. We will be transporting those families from LeGee and or this campus over here with routes. If they are close to
kind of
another
like
route,
dedicated routes.
they would be dedicated routes.
Yeah.
Yep, or if they're really close to one of the Chesapeake Marlowe routes where they live, they would, ride on that. But we will just create similar to what we do there. I will be honest, transportation will be a little bit of a challenge, but we make it work every year with our cross-boundary students. So we will be working diligently as soon as we get those names as people register.
Yeah, the two factors that really contributed into the decision to roll this up slowly, grade by grade, one was our ability to feel confident that we can transport the students. But then also, the other one was the obvious one of our families that are in their home. Being in their home school is an important thing. This is a big shift to take an entire program and have an academy at a location not in your home school. And we didn't feel it was fair for our families to if transportation could have worked, we would have explored the possibility of bringing everybody over faster so that they can hurry up and get to that collaborative environment I think we're all excited about. But I don't think that's fair for our families. But transportation is a major factor as to why this is such a long rollout.
Right, which is, I get it, fine. I don't know if it's a question, like the concept in middle school of, that they're in, not just, bilingual classes, they're in regular English classes on some of these subjects throughout the day, so that, because right now, predominantly in the elementary, right, they're predominantly just in their own little, bilingual, cohorts, so, yeah. So that has a lot of appeal. Question, again, it was well put together. Question I always have on bilingual, and getting it to be as successful as possible. Again, the home equation. How do we enhance the home equation? Meaning, if you've got just Spanish-speaking parents and you're trying to teach Spanish-speaking kids English, and they don't get to practice other than being in school, I'm sure that is always a hurdle to overcome and slows down their growth, and vice versa. And English-speaking students who have just English-speaking parents. I'm always curious that the makeup of I'm glad we have so many parents willing to put their kids in the bilingual that are English-speaking. But how do we deal with that hurdle? Trying to enhance their home experiences in order to utilize their languages they're trying to develop.
So when we're talking about our Spanish-speaking students who their job is to learn English, I will tell you, like, those students, it's actually much easier because we live in an English-speaking world. So those students to acquire English really isn't that difficult. Whereas sometimes I think a little bit more of a challenge is because when our students are English-speaking and are trying to learn Spanish because they don't get as much exposure outside of the walls. But that's where our transition to a dual academy, where we think that that's going to really help because we're going to have more opportunities for them to talk with other peers and more opportunities just in general throughout the day to help with that. And then one of the things too, as a program, we're becoming a lot stronger is really becoming aware of that oracy. So that is part of our bilingual, biliterate journey, and that we want to offer more opportunities for our students to practice that language as far as speaking it, as far as understanding it, and then engaging in activities and ensuring that we're gauging that language so that we can push them forward. So I think that there's a lot of really great opportunities for the students. The stronger that our students are, the stronger that our teachers are getting and understanding that language acquisition for both English and Spanish, that's where the program works wonderfully well, right? It's because we have those Spanish models that help them in the classroom, and then vice versa. We have the English models that are helping each other in the classroom.
And interestingly enough, I appreciate your perspective. I think you're spot on. It's the English students not getting the support in Spanish at home because of that being spoken. But following our Ukrainian Family Night, we had such interest in English language learning courses at the adult level. Right. And I think I would share with you before we reconnected with MCC, and they're offering that. I think we've had over 100 of our families connect with us, and then ultimately MCC that are enrolling in English ESL courses through MCC, and so that's an outcome for adults that is brought on because of the dual language program, and our connection with Greater Community Resources. Really excited about that. But again, your point is spot on, and I appreciate it because I initially didn't think that way. But you're right. It's the students that are English speaking that aren't getting the Spanish support at home.
Right.
That is important. So we check with MCC about some adult Spanish classes.
Yeah, I can tell you when my kids were taking Chinese that they weren't getting a lot of Chinese spoken for myself or my wife. So yeah, it's pretty tough on them, and that's their sole source.
I just want to add that pre-COVID, we have Spanish classes for dual language parents, and it was really powerful. So we are probably going to start doing that again next year. But it was just the Spanish that the English-speaking parents needed to support the students in the program. And and it was just, it was very good, it was very powerful. We have to stop that, and we're probably gonna try to do it again. It was just to Spanish to, definitely the parents were not speaking Spanish at the end of the class, but it was just more like, you know, how to support your students in the Spanish journey and the biliteracy journey.
Yeah, I just have a comment. I want to thank you for how much effort went into pulling this together. I think if there were a standard for communication of a program, this is what it should look like. You clearly engaged with the current participants, you sought feedback from the students, you sought feedback from families, you laid out an articulate path forward, the expected outcomes, and then have engagement of the broader community at large. I think it's really good. So just congratulations on, I think, a really thoughtful transition. And if there's a standard that I think we should set, this was it. So, but just thank you for the effort that went into it. It was just very clear and articulate. And communication is really important, and I think you did a good job doing that.
Just a question on kind of like the distribution and population of the program today, like, I hate to refer to colors on your graph, but like a Spanish learner, native Spanish speaker versus an English or native English speaker, what's that distribution, like total count of students, and then what's the distribution of types, so to speak, coming in?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting here in Huntley. I will tell you, I will say, and for it to really do a language, for sure, it has to be at least a third that are coming from those native Spanish-speaking households that qualify for those bilingual services that we talked about. So here, what we're seeing is like a third of those students are coming from those types of households who they do have that Spanish. A third are actually those Spanish maintenance. Now they're second generation, and now families are reaching out because they're like, you know what, they're not speaking Spanish at home, and I really want this to, it's part of my culture, it's part of my heritage, it's part of who we are, and we need to maintain that. So that's like another third of our families, and then the other third that we talked about are the English, but even within the third, we actually have, you know, we talked about our Ukrainian and Polish students who are also there, but a lot of our students are actually from Polish speaking, Ukrainian, Arabic, Tagalog, and it's amazing to hear, like sometimes, you know, I'll get the parents who call me and are like, I didn't get in the lottery and we need to get in the lottery. We speak another language at home, and now because we speak 2 languages, 3 languages is not a problem. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's like very, very unique to Huntley. It's not something that you see in all dual language immersion programs, but I think that that's one of the things that is super cool to be able to walk in that. I think, like, when we talk about multiculturalism in our dual language classrooms, and I think that even for us has been a shift. When I walked into the classrooms and I even asked the kids, what languages do we speak? Normally it's like Spanish, English, but when we talk about it, like everybody's not Spanish, English, Russian, Ukrainian, you know, we're not bilingual, we're multilingual, right, within this classroom. So I will have to say that is a really nice piece, just the diversity that we have as far as the languages that are actually represented in the dual language classroom.
And how many total students are there in the program?
So currently, I would say about 430. We're up to 430 this year. Mm-hmm.
So one thing that strikes me, I'm just trying to think, like, logistically, as you keep kind of going down up the grade level, is staffing, resources, facilities, and all that. I try to go back and say, well, where I want to say where does it end, but where does that program offer an end? Does it keep, you know, is the vision someday to be high school in the same vein, or, you know, it's kind of like, what's the overall mission when it comes at the end of the day from K through 12? What is the ultimate benefit someone going through that program gets that they otherwise wouldn't get as an adult? Might be a very broad question, but.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. I think the ultimate goal, like we had talked about, is that bilingualism. And that's so different than just taking Spanish class at the high school, right? It's now because you've grown up with that and you're able to now communicate in that, that bilingualism, that biliteracy, being able to read and write in another language. The things that we're able to do as a high school now, like you're no longer going to be taking Spanish 1 or 2. Mm-hmm. Now, as soon as you get to the high school, because you already know how to read and write, we're actually able to probably offer different things at the high school. So we're not looking, so I think that it's gonna be a continuous area, just like what we did here, like getting back together, like with our administrators, with, our families, and just looking at the different possibilities. And I will tell you, like, we have many conversations with other school districts as well, especially when it's a unit district, pre-K through grade 12, to say, what are you guys doing, and what does it look like for you? And those are initial conversations that for us that are essential for us to have, because I already have that in the back of my mind, just like that question that you're asking. We know our parents have that in the back of our minds too. So how can we best prepare then? Already, as we're talking about middle school, we're going to be gauging our students in that language acquisition and how they're doing as far as Spanish and English. And then at the end of 8th grade, then what are the opportunities, right? So what opportunities, additional opportunities then, can we continue to offer at the high school so that we're not losing this, but continuing to just build upon it? And especially in that Spanish.
I think some of the specifics, though, that may appeal to you is our as Ms. Ponce Jordan said, you'll be entering high school, maybe it's starting at Spanish 3 or Spanish 4.
Right.
AP Spanish,
Right.
AP Spanish Lit, AP Spanish
Right.
Language, and then ultimately graduating with the state seal of biliteracy that just opens doors at the four-year college level beyond.
Right.
So I think it's about opportunity and putting our students in a position that they can go wherever they want, and they're going to have tremendous options because of that bilingualism.
Gotcha. Okay.
But new courses are on the way, that's for sure, at the high school.
Your point is very well taken about the retention. Somebody who spoke Ukrainian at a very young age and stuck with it through my high school years, and then having family members who still speak the language. Granted, they're getting older and whatnot, but being plugged into that community, being able to communicate in that level. I'm in my 50s, and it still sticks with me because I learned it at a young age. It's very well documented that when you start teaching that at a young age and you continue to nurture it over time, it becomes more ingrained up here. The more as you use it, the more you retain it. Whereas, like you said, you take it in high school at an older age, it doesn't sink in the same way that it does at a younger age, where it becomes ingrained into the DNA essentially, because you're used to it. It becomes part of your norm. Whereas in high school, it's not necessarily part of the norm. It's just another class. And I don't mean it doesn't sound right, but there's definitely a difference when you have those additional years of the youth experience to go with it than just picking it up and using it for a couple of years, and then moving on, and even taking it further into college, those kids that go beyond. So there's a point that's extremely well taken, as somebody who lives that, and no doubt you do as well. And then my question is actually the same as, or similar to other people, is what happens in that high school level, but that's clearly been answered about the development of additional stuff to help those advanced speakers. Thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you.
We look forward to those opportunities.
I did have one other question. You very briefly touched on something about trilingual students, and I was curious how that blends into this, if at all, because it's again, it goes back to the immersion culture, right? Growing through this for a number of years, there's the immersion, but when you have a trilingual situation, I don't know if you have that opportunity to immerse here and immerse there and immerse there, and you know, there are only so many hours in the day, and you still have to sleep, and you still have to do all these other things. So I'm curious how that might kind of add into this melting pot, if you will.
What I have found in speaking with our students that are trilingual, especially those that are now at the 4th and 5th grade, I think that being in a dual language program and just the fact that you celebrate language and culture, it helps them actually even accept their own language that they have at home. So that's what we tell all of our parents. Like, even if you're coming from just an English-speaking household, a Spanish-speaking household, you maintain whatever language it is that you have, and we're going to help build upon that. So those students have maintained the language, and it's amazing to see like the similarities even of when we do talk about language, because that is what we thought, what's the difference between English and Spanish? And then our students even have the opportunity to talk about, this is how you say it, and I had a teacher, the other day actually just call me, and she's like, just so you know, like, this word is the same in Tagalog and English and Spanish, and we put that on our wall, you know, and all of our students are just adding to that. So I think that I would say that for our trilingual students, like, we may not be able to support that native language per se here at school, but what we do support is that idea of multiculturalism, multilingualism, and that you should be proud of that, and that they continue that, and then our parents do that at home too. Continue to support in whichever way that you can, in whichever language that you can, and we'll just continue to add and help in the ways that we can support.
And I remember, many years ago now, one of the early school board conferences that I attended, was a district that had a very large population of Japanese students. So they did a dual language program with Japanese, which I thought was just fascinating back in the, Schaumburg, is it? Yeah, and I thought it was just absolutely fascinating, conceptually, with, you know, where we are today with what we're doing here now, that was the norm 10 years ago or whatever it was, or 15 years ago, that this is how they launched it, how they progressed through it over the years. It was fascinating back then, and so to see this blossom the way that it has, it's refreshing. It's really cool. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 11 is President's Report, and I have no President's Report. So we'll move on to 12, which is Community Relations and Student Outreach. Ms. Marino, we have.
Thank you. We have item 12.1, it is the FOIA report. Does anyone have any questions? Hearing none. Move it forward.
Yep. Yep. And item 13, Mr. Creddy, I forgot to remove it, so I apologize.
No problem.
Mr. Creddy has no report for the legislation committee, so we're going to go to item 14, which is the consent agenda. All right, so we have consent agenda. Are there any items that anybody needs removed off of consent?
Do we have an Avid update? Is Avid on here, or is that separate?
Avid is on the consent agenda, so if you want further discussion on it, it needs to be removed.
No, I didn't know if there was, like, if there's something here. There was something.
It's a lot of similar information from last,
Okay.
just in case you wanted to refresh it, we would provide.
I got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I will add, we did have a very detailed discussion on Avid. I mean, is there any need for that to be removed off of consent and be discussed further? Nope. Okay, if not, then I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a second? Second. Second from Mr. Gentry. Can we have roll call?
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mr. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino? Yes. Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Okay. Items pass. Item 15 is action items. We have item 15.1 is our supplemental purchase orders. So I'll make, first of all, is there any discussion on that item? There's no discussion on that item. I'll make a motion to approve the supplemental purchase order as presented in the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Troy. Can we have roll call?
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino? Yes. Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mr. Daly?
I'm abstaining tonight. There's a small PO to the company I work for here.
Okay. Understandable. Very good. Motion passes 6-0-1. Item 15.2 is the policy update. Does anybody have any discussion on that item? Not. I'll make a motion to approve policy updates as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Daly. We roll call.
Mrs. Maiorino. Yes. Mr. Craddy.
Yes.
Mr. Troy.
Yes.
Mr. Daly.
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano.
Yes.
Mr. Gentry.
Yes.
Mr. Karen.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Item 16 is adjournment. Make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:39. Is there a second? Second from Mr. Craddy. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned.